Welcome to the Needle's Eye Faith and Work Show, a show that aims to help Christian professionals grow in Christ, find your purpose, and transform your workplace. I'm Jeremy Woltz with Needle's Eye, and I'm sitting down with working men and women to find out how their faith impacts their work. Today, I'm joined by Melanie Roberts, financial advisor, fundraiser, and mother. Melanie.
Yes.
I'm so happy to have you here. I'm very excited. And I just want to point out that you are incredibly sparkly. I know I said that before, but the purse, the brush, you've got the lip gloss. And then I think to top it off, you just have like the most bubbly personality. And it is fantastic. So I'm excited to be able to sit down and talk.
Me too.
Really today, to like put you at ease for what this is.
Okay.
I'm not interviewing you. This is not hard try. I'm not like, it's my goal to make Melanie cry. Really, this is just like, you are first off, you're a woman in finance, which I think is still a little bit of a minority in that field.
Yeah.
You're also a Christian who very much approaches your work through the lens of faith.
Yes, absolutely.
So my hope today, more than anything, honestly, is just to have like casual, fun, hopefully meaningful conversation.
Always meaningful. Yeah.
Yeah. And it will just kind of be a way of us saying, hey, you're a Christian and you are a professional.
Right.
How do those two intersect? And how did you just become the Melanie Roberts that you are today? Right. You have unique experiences. You have a history that is completely your own.
Yeah.
And truthfully, you've actually been through some unique transitions.
Yes.
And I just want to figure out, like, how'd you navigate that? How'd your faith play a part in that? And then, like, again, how are you, the wonderful, incredible human that you are today?
Thank you.
So that's it.
Okay.
No pressure.
All right. Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So to start off, do me a huge favor.
Okay.
Give me like 5 sentences. You can go longer than that.
Okay.
But just who are you? Yeah, brief. Just like, who are you? You know, what's your name? What do you do? Both professionally, but like, what do you do just to enjoy your life?
Right. Okay. So my name is Melanie Roberts. I'm a financial advisor. I'm a mom. I'm a single mom.
Ooh, yeah.
I somehow got roped into coaching soccer.
Oh, God. Did you play soccer?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. Didn't play soccer. Didn't play any sport.
Wow.
You throw a ball at me, I'm more than likely going to move out of the way, not try to engage.
So this wasn't like wow, Melanie's really fit for this. It was no one else was willing.
Right. And if you want your kid to play soccer, you coach.
Got
because there's not a coach available. And that was 3 seasons ago.
Has your team ever had a winning season?
We don't really keep score.
All right, fair enough.
Right? Like,
fair enough.
So they're young enough that they are not really keeping score that much. It's more about like a rec league and team development.
Yeah.
I try to make sure that they're good people.
Sure.
And then good soccer players. And then maybe we win some games.
It's like the Ted Lasso approach.
Yeah. So that's the order of how I try to coach them. They all have fun. Good. So that's super important.
So financial advisor, single mom, soccer coach extraordinaire. What else you got?
Yeah. So I have a camp that I absolutely love that is in Illinois. So my mom was a camper there.
Oh, wow.
I was a camper there. I was a camp counselor there. And my kids have also been campers there. So that's like my one thing every single summer is I go back for the weekend and we all get together.
Is this like a summer camp or like interesting? Okay, that's kind of cool. I'm guessing that must have like some sort of formative experience.
Oh yes,
influence
absolutely.
On your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't be who I am today. Like my oldest son calls me nature girl because he's like, you just love to be outside, and I was like, yes, I love to be outside. I love to be in the woods. I love to do all things outside.
To be honest with you, I never would have guessed that about you. You do not strike me as like the outdoorsy, woodsy kind of person.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah. So I mean, that's like full tent camping, everything.
Yeah.
I need to see more of this side of you.
Yeah, we didn't have bathrooms when I, like the older I got, right? So there were no bathrooms up at Makawala. And
Makawala.
Yeah, Makawala
That just sounds
Point.
like a summer camp.
Yep. So there were no, now main camp had bathrooms and cabins and stuff, but once you got old enough, you got to go up in the tents and sleep under the stars and all the things.
Perfect. Okay, that's like a good kind of survey of who you are.
Yeah.
So real quick, can you give me like faith journey? I mean, quick. Clearly,
Yeah.
faith journeys can go real deep, and we'll get there maybe, but we don't have to yet. So just quick story.
So I've had a plethora of religious experiences.
Okay.
So I went to a Pentecostal preschool and kindergarten.
Okay.
I was raised Methodist.
Okay.
I went to a Christian school 1st through 9th.
Okay.
And I went to Catholic school sophomore through senior.
Oh my gosh. You have like tons of like religious personalities.
When I got married, the only church my ex-husband would go to was a Baptist church. So I was also baptized in the Baptist church.
Okay.
And then after we divorced, I converted to Catholicism. So I've been a member of the cathedral down here since 2019.
Wow. Okay.
So I have a lot of
You do.
denominations in my back pocket.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So at which point do you feel like your faith became real to you? Because look, my family raised me in a Christian home, and I appreciated everything, but it wasn't really until I can recall it was my sophomore year in high school. That was the first time I was like, I want to believe this for me. Like, I don't want to believe it because my mom, my dad tell me to. So when did that happen?
Oh, that was really young. So probably 6. My mom almost died.
Oh.
Yeah, so she almost died. She was in the hospital when I was 6 years old.
Wow, that's
So,
terrifying.
yeah. So then,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I've seen God work like at a very young age. So she almost died when I was 6. I got diagnosed with dyslexia in 2nd grade. My dad lost custody of me when I was in 4th grade.
Oh my gosh.
And so, like, if those things wouldn't have happened, which would have been like, oh, this is devastating, right? Like, your mom almost died. You have a learning disability, but like, it opened up the chapter in my life to be, you know, what it was. So I've always seen God use maybe bumps in the road to like, for a real purpose. Like, it's always turned out better, even if it wasn't the best in the moment.
Right. Which is usually a hindrance for people to come to faith. Right. The idea that, well, a good God wouldn't let these things happen. And you, even at a young age, went through some major bumps, some major hindrances, but instead saw
God working.
Developed faith, saw God in the midst of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we wouldn't have gotten through it.
Yeah.
And my dad wouldn't have lost custody if those things wouldn't have happened. Like, it would have been a longer, more drawn out thing. And so, like, yeah, God put that bump in the road. My report cards got taken into court, and this is what's going on, right? Like, and this is clearly affecting her.
Right.
And then I was able to just live my life, and, you know, my grades went up and all the things. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would say that, for lack of a better way to put it, like, those are humble beginnings, right?
Yeah.
Humble beginnings, but then you went on and, you know, clearly your life got figured out, or, you know, the circumstance, your living situation, all that, your mom luckily recovered, it sounds like.
Yeah, she's
and
fine.
You went on to get into politics, which is not finance.
Yeah, no, it's not, and it's not finance. No. So, I went to college at a little town, like a little college town in Eastern Kentucky.
Okay.
So I did the first 2.5 years there in Moorhead. And then I transferred home to U of L and graduated there. But, and I thought maybe pre-law-ish thing. But I took an internship when I was in Louisville to work at the state house, and I got bit by the political bug. I was like, because I could see a bill start at the beginning and end, and like all of what went into that, and the compromise and all of that, and I got bit, and it was over for me. So that was, the internship was in 2002.
Okay.
So it was January of 2002, and then I went and worked for the state party that fall.
Wow.
And had been in politics from 2002 to 2017, 2018.
Okay. And that, and I don't want to sit in the politics for too long, but I think it's interesting that, you know, politics is one of those that there's the faithful party, there's the, you know, kind of non-faithful party. There's all these kind of views about faith and politics.
Yep.
But you know, again, from a young age, were able to see God through the struggle, through the challenges. And two things kind of to that I want to hear more about. One is, how did that impact your ability to engage in politics behind the scenes?
Yeah.
You were behind the veil of a
I
lot
was
of
behind
this.
the scenes. Yeah.
And I imagine faith had to be
Oh,
a crutch,
absolutely.
if nothing else.
Absolutely.
So I want to hear about that.
Yeah.
And then I also really would love to hear about, like, how did you just choose to make the transition out? So take that as you will.
Yeah. So I think that the problem with politics and with people is that, but it's especially shown in politics, is that political people want to tell you that your morals and your faith are wrong. And I never felt that way, right? I had been exposed to so many things and different beliefs that I never sat across from someone and said, what you believe is wrong.
Yeah.
What I believe is right. And I think that in the olden days in politics, right, they would sit at a table, they would have dinner as families together. There wasn't the noise,
Yeah.
right? There were real relationships that were built, and so it was easier to get things done. Now it's I'm right, you're wrong. But we're really not solving the problem, right? It's not, it's I would rather be right than make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And so the one candidate that I worked for had a 100% rating with Virginia Free, which is the business, like even better than the chamber here, and 100% with the League of Conservation Voters, which is the environmental people.
Right.
Don't tell me it can't be done.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he was able to do it, not because he's like the end all and be all, but because he was smart enough to know, like, how do we put this policy in place that's not going to hurt the environment, but also not going to hurt business? Because we need both.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not always a right and a left. It's a, how do we come together and truly listen to people and what's important to them, and then move the needle forward. The needle, right? Move the needle forward. So, I mean, I learned that. And I learned that, like, you get a whole lot more done by just having the conversations and not passing the judgment.
Yeah.
Because more than likely, if a legislator's bringing a bill to the floor, he's got a reason, right? There's a story behind that. So let's figure out what that is. How is it affecting him? What is the real goal here? Because half the things that go through the General Assembly, I can tell you, have to get fixed the next year because they have unintended consequences that, so, like, what are the intended consequences and how can we come together? And that was what I loved about politics. It wasn't the fighting or the I'm right and you're wrong, but it was like, at the end of the day, behind the scenes, how do we really move this forward? And how do we really help people be better, the world better, right? And that's what I loved about it.
Yeah,
so,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Everything you said, I think, is great, because even the way you described, like, what you actually loved about politics sounds like there are some biblical concepts. Some, like, not passing judgment and working about how do we actually work together. And honestly, one of the big things, and I'm guilty of this, I look at policies that are put forth, and if I don't agree with them, I don't think about the politician and the person behind it. I usually just think about how, like, this is so terrible and I can't believe they're doing this and they're pushing this agenda, or whatever the case is. And the humanity, even I'll do this, I rip the humanity away from it.
Right.
And everything you're describing is, let's remember the humanity. Let's remember essentially that everyone, even the ones putting policies we don't agree with, are created in the image of God. How can we work together for a positive outcome?
Right.
All of that to me is like, oh, there's faithful concepts at play.
Well, and the judgment piece is, like, huge for me. Like, I had, so my delegate got put on the 7th floor. He was a freshman delegate. He was super young. He was 35 years old. He got put, like, in the back corner closet, right? So the other party, there was only one of him, with 2 on that whole wing. So the other party occupied that whole wing. He was a freshman legislator. I was a freshman legislative aide. I don't know what the heck I'm doing, right? Like, I've seen it in Kentucky, but this is a completely different beast. And I'm running out in the middle of the hallway, like, somebody help me. Like, I can't, right? And there was all these people that rallied around me that had different beliefs than me and knew that I was associated with the other party, a freshman. They didn't need me. They didn't even need my delegate, right? But they rallied around me. And then my party wouldn't talk to me because I was friends with these people.
Right.
And I'm like, listen, do we have 100% of the delegates here? Because last time I checked, we didn't. So you can't get anything through anywhere unless you have a friend on the other side of the aisle. So who's the smart one and who's not the smart one, right? And when I got to the governor's office, it was the other party. I got a letter sent to the governor's office. I can't remember if he wrote it to me or he wrote it to the governor, like, congratulations, I know that you're great for the Commonwealth, all this. And I hadn't worked with him in 3-4 years.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so it's like those kinds of things, those sorts of relationships. And he was probably way far away from my delegate. And so he could have assumed I was way far from him too.
Right.
But he still sent that letter, right? I still have that letter even today, right?
That's wonderful.
So it's those types of relationships that you call on because that trust is built, that faith is built, that I'm not coming for you, even if we disagree.
Right.
And so I think that's what's wrong with politics today. I think that's what's wrong with like relationships today is like there doesn't have to be a right and a wrong. There just has to be a like community coming together to like move things forward.
Yeah. Okay. As you talk about this, it is obvious to me like your passion, your excitement for it. So that still very much has a place in your heart.
Yeah,
that
it will never. Yeah,
that
it'll
job,
never go away.
So then, talk me through. Was it a God thing? Was it a family stage of life thing? Like, why the transition from politics to now financial advising?
Yeah. So I worked in 7 different states.
It's a lot.
That's a lot of different states because I was on campaigns mostly. When I came to Virginia, I worked for a nonprofit. Then I worked in the state legislature. Then I worked in the governor's office. But it's not real stable.
Yeah.
So you're serving at the pleasure of whoever's in power, and they could not be in power the next day.
Right.
So I went through a very messy divorce, and my ex-husband stood up on the stand in court and said, "Look at her resume. She's not stable."
Oh, wow.
So
interesting.
Yeah. So the fact that I had been able to get jobs all over the country and people had hired me,
which is a sign indicative of success and performance, but that was being used against you because of the kind of migrant nature.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep. And so I talked to my attorney, and I talked to one of the delegates that was on that 7th floor that was the opposite party. And I called her and I said, hey, because she wasn't a delegate anymore. I said, I need a job. Do you know of anything? I thought I was going in for a job interview, and she had the computer set up. Everything was done. We'll hire you right then and there.
Wow.
So she hired me. She's still the executive director over at the Virginia Realtors.
Okay.
And she hired me right then to do political work, to help the lobbyists. They do endorsements for political candidates based on how they relate to realtors. Are you pro-business? Do you understand housing? Do you understand, right? So she hired me to work there. And then I transitioned in that organization to sales, which I would have never thought.
I can see that, though.
Right. Because I sell candidates, it's not that difficult to sell sponsorships and to do fundraising for non-dues revenue to go into the association. Okay. So I did that, and then I got recruited from a lender that I had worked closely with to do business development for them, and then they laid me off.
Oh, no.
And I was like, but I would have never, this is a God thing, right? Because I would have never thought my political career, I have a women's studies degree and a political science degree, would have never thought that would be business oriented.
Right.
And I tried to apply for work in Kentucky, marketing and all that stuff, and no one would hire me because I didn't have any I'm like, I market, I do mail, I know what a radio spot, like I can do it all. But it was like, it wasn't translating. So I would have never thought that it would have translated into a business type thing, but it did. And had I not gone to do business development for that lender, I would have never known. During that time, I met a financial advisor with the company I'm at now.
Okay.
And he, I told my mom about him because my mom had a financial advisor and he was telling her to buy a BMW. And I was like, my mom doesn't need a BMW.
Yeah.
She doesn't care about that. Like, why are you telling? I was like, go talk to this guy. So she went, she transferred her funds over to him, and then the lender laid me off. And so she was in there, and he was like, well, what's she doing? And she was like, well, she's trying to figure out what the next step is. And he was like, she'd make an excellent financial advisor.
Wow.
And so that's how that happened.
So you went through, because I didn't know this, I thought you went from politics to financial advising. You worked like 7 jobs in between.
Yeah.
And luckily, the relationships you built, the kind of, the trust first approach you take, that really seems to have been the relationship difference that you needed to be able to find these things.
God always put someone in my path, right? I've only had 2 jobs in all of those jobs that I didn't know someone, right? So I'd made an impact on them. They trusted me. They'd seen my work. And so it always opened up the doors. And so after the lender laid me off, I was hard. I was like, I don't want to be in corporate America. Like, if you're not going to put the client first, if you're not going to do right by people, I don't want to be a part of it. And this company, said from the beginning, you do put the client first. This is our role, is to serve. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. And then God also took me through this, that I haven't had a standardized test since I was in high school.
I was getting ready to ask, because testing is difficult.
Yes.
For financial advising.
Right. And I have dyslexia, which never had been a problem since I was a kid, since I was learning to read, because I just worked harder, right? I just studied longer. What would take you an hour and a half to read and comprehend, it was going to take me 2 to 3 hours, right? So I would just work harder. Well, when you're testing in a chunk of time, I never had to been through that before. It was I would rather eat glass than do that again, right? But I got through it. I failed the first time. I took the 7. I failed the first time I took the 66, but I passed the second time. And that is truly a God thing, because I would have never gotten through it without the Lord, for sure. I
want to press into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you talked about going through a messy divorce, you're a single mom, you get laid off from this lender. I mean, so there's a moment where you have to feel like your life is spiraling. And luckily, through your personality and through your own credentials, but also through your mom having this conversation with a financial advisor you set her up with, he kind of lays this seed of, well, maybe she should look into this industry.
Yeah.
How did you overcome the fear of inadequacy, the struggle of having to learn a whole new industry and take all these tests, all while managing your own finances to take care of the 2 kids that you're raising kind of on your own? How do you? Because you're probably, I'm guessing, not in your early 20s at this stage.
No. I'm 43 now. Yeah.
Okay, so and this happened a couple of years ago. So you're late 30s, early 40s, which is by no means a young professional,
right? Yeah.
So how did you find the courage, the wherewithal to be able to really step into it and say, I'm committed to this? Yeah.
So the thing I love about being a financial advisor is being able to help people, right? So when I was 13, I was my grandpa's girl, right? I was grandpa's girl. My grandpa got sick. He was a Glad factory worker in Illinois, right? So he retired World War II veteran, right? So old guy. My grandma was a switchboard operator at the hospital back when you had to really unplug and plug back in, right? So these are blue collar people, right? But they had done enough planning. They had a financial advisor. When my grandpa got sick, it was okay, right? Everything was taken care of. My mom quit her job in Kentucky and moved home to Illinois and took care of my grandpa for the end of his life.
Wow.
If that financial advisor hadn't had everything set up, there's no way my mom could have forwent her income and gone home and taken care of my grandpa. But the piece that allowed my grandma to have my mom there, my grandpa, because he wasn't in a hospital, he wasn't in a nursing home, there was someone able-bodied there, gave my family such peace that if I can do that for somebody else, right, that feeds my soul. Are the financial conversations easy? No.
Right.
You know, they're not easy conversations. But if you have that trust and you have that rapport with someone, then those conversations become easier. They become easier to talk about money. People don't want to talk about money. They don't want to talk about if they get sick. They don't want to talk about if somebody dies. They don't want to talk about those things. But if you trust someone that's sitting across from you, then it becomes easier.
Yeah.
And then we can plan, and then we can get to the place that we want to be. And it's different for everybody, right? But the ability for me to sit at somebody's kitchen table with them when their husband's in the other room on hospice, and we're just making sure everything's planned, right?
Yeah.
I go to the funeral home with them, right? Like, we're going to pick this out. We're going to do this. And so for me, being able to do that is a God thing, right? That's how I have those tough conversations, is because God just leads me to serve, right?
Yeah.
And that fills my soul.
Yeah.
That makes me happy to be able to do that for another family.
So, one, I think all that is incredible. Even the story about whether you knew it or not. I mean, the fact that this financial advisor was able to help your grandfather, your grandmother set up so well, and then to be able to step into the industry, likely as a complete detour from anything you planned for yourself.
Yeah,
I think that's
absolutely.
kind of beautifully poetic.
Yeah.
But then even hearing you describe all of this at this stage now, because you've been in it for a few years.
Yeah.
Do you look at it now and say, oh, this was actually what God wanted me to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I don't think I'll ever get the political bug out of me, right? Like, because it's just in me. But it's a much more micro. I can see the results much quicker.
Yeah.
I can give people peace much quicker. They call me and ask me questions, because they don't want to make decisions without my feedback first. And sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with like what I'm offering them, right? It just has to do with like their life, right? Like I have a client that calls me about real estate, and I'm not in real estate,
right?
But these are financial decisions. Is it a good investment for you? Like, these are the kind of conversations that we have. And he wants to buy a beach house for his mom.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, it's not for him.
Right.
He wants to buy a beach house for his mom because his mom was a single mom, like trying to make it through, and he wants to reward her. She fought cancer, right? Like, all of these things that if you don't dig deep to figure out why, right? Because some financial advisors are just, give me your money, I'll grow it here.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But that doesn't get you Mother's Day at the beach.
Yeah.
Right? I can make you a lot of money, but if it's Mother's Day at the beach that we really want, like, let's figure out how to get you there. And everybody's different, right? Like, my goal, I don't want to travel when I retire. Like, I want to sit at a lake house and read a book in a hammock, right? Like, I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to do anything. I want to just rest. My best friend, she's a month different than me. She wants to travel when she retires, right? So, like, it's different. We're the same age, right? But it's different for everybody. So you got to find out what that is, and then let's get you there.
Yeah.
And weigh it with the peace of mind. Like, I have people that are afraid of the market. I can make you a lot of money, but if you can't sleep at night, what's that going to do?
Right.
Right? So we've got to get you comfortable, and this is why we're making the choices that we're making. And I've got, people asking me about CDs, and I'm like, okay, well, we can lock this down at 5%, or I can put you in a money market for 4.8. Which one do you want to do?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
We can make a little bit more money here, but it's not liquid.
Yeah.
So, like, you choose. We can make that extra 2%, 0.2%, right? But
so, thinking about all of this realistically, and you be as careful or however you want to be with this. When you look at the way that you engage the business of financial advising, can you point to any ways that it's like, the way I do this is markedly different than non-Christian counterparts who do the exact same job, and they may be profoundly kind, wonderful people. So, just because someone's a non-Christian doesn't mean that they're morally bankrupt, right? That is clearly not the case. Yeah. But are there ways that you go, I can point to ways that the way I do it's a little set apart. It's a little bit different because of my faith.
Yeah, I don't know how I get paid, right? Like, I don't the commission, the way that we're set up, like I was on like a bigger salary in the beginning and less commission, and then it comes down. I can't tell you how it comes down, when it comes down, right? Like my goal is to help people, and I do right by them, and God provides, right? Like it's not I don't look at my numbers. I don't know how many times I've been on calls and they're like, what's your number for? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Ask me how many conversations I had this week that I helped someone's sleeping better tonight because we had a conversation.
You even judge your success differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Because I also am not 25 years old with, 60, 70 hours a week to spend on my business. I'm like, have 20 maybe one week because I have kids.
Yeah.
So I try to make it up the next week. But at the end of the day, they're only young once, and they're only going to want me around for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And then they're going to be like, peace out, Mom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, So, I mean, my priorities are different than making the money, right? So the Lord continues to provide, and I just keep doing the work.
Yeah. Talking about financial stuff in general, I think money and God don't always seem to go together. So working in a field that is very financially driven, I think can be almost counterintuitive for people who are like, oh, you look at your job as a ministry? But I think rather than having the conversation about the unique challenges, I think there are some really unique opportunities that you get. And you've talked a little bit about, you're sitting at a kitchen table with somebody whose husband's on hospice in the other room. That's a level of vulnerability and intimacy that most service providers don't get with their clients. So if you were looking at what you do and you think, you know what, there are some really unique opportunities I have, what would those be?
So, I mean, I think sitting at the table when people are sick, but also like a lot of advisors don't talk about charitable giving as a priority, right? Like the clients that I want to grow are going to have to take required minimum distributions out of their retirement account. Well, what if we talk to them before they're required to pull that out, right? And we say, okay, and I have clients that I do that it's a pain in the rear because she wants to give to 10 different, right? But let's have a conversation in December about who you want to give to, and we can give more to those organizations and to those charities and to your church, because if it's not hit your bank account. Right. So it's more work on my end, right? But we're able to do more with your money, and the churches and the organizations get that money up front. They get it in December and January, so they don't have to work so hard through the year because it's already there. Yeah. Right? So it's better for everybody. And then also there are tax strategies that we can use to benefit the charities, like when you pass away, and insurance policies, right? Like it doesn't all have to be going to your kids or your grandkids. Yes, but I have clients that don't have kids or grandkids. So what do we do with those dollars that you've worked hard for? How do we put that into place that it's going to something you care about, right? Instead of it just going into probate and, right? So let's have those harder conversations, but you can, on your deathbed, you're going to be able to die at peace because you know that this money is going to go to something that you care about. So, I mean, I think it's really digging deep and having harder conversations. No one likes to talk about death. No one likes to talk about getting sick, but if we have those conversations, like we can really maximize your beliefs and your charity and your giving and all of the things.
Well, one of the things, hearing you describe this, that I think is really incredible, through Needle's Eye, one of the things we talk a lot about is leveraging your influence in finances, your influence in resources, in order to maximize your impact for the kingdom of God. And it's interesting to hear you talk about this because I see it working out two ways in the way you're describing this. One is you have influence with your clients, clearly. That you're in that relationship with them and you're giving them that advice. That's obvious influence. But in that, your influence is helping them figure out the best way to use their resources to steward what God has given them to have greater impact than simply on themselves. It's bigger than themselves. And automatically looking at that, you think, wow, it is remarkable how through finding and really sort of stumbling your way into this profession, God has given you an opportunity and works through you to influence people to maximize their resources for his purposes.
Yeah.
And there's beauty in that.
And because I have a fundraising background, right? So I get the money part of it, right? I know what nonprofits have to go through to get that money, right? And so if I can speak to them, like I had a nonprofit and I really tried, I'm like, we can use these accounts as a fundraising tool, right? Like we can set up 10 different accounts with 10 different donors and they can watch that money grow, right? Like you can send them the statement. Right? Like you give me $1 million, I will send this to your family for the rest of your life, right? Like that is something tangible that they can watch and see, and that is a gift to them, right? Like my grandpa gave us this money and look at what it's been able to do, right? It's like when I was in politics, I would call and ask for a contribution, right? But I would also call, do you know how much a 4x8 costs? Do you know how much a mail piece costs? Right? Like, I need you to give me $1,000 so we can put 20 yard signs out. Can you do that? No, I can't do that. Can you give me 500? Yeah, I'll give you 500. All right, who can I call to get the other 500 so we can put these 20 signs out, right? So I know the value of that, and when people can see it, then it grows.
And you're looking at, these are fairly mundane tasks, but you can see the greater significance behind it. And again, I think that is this beautiful kind of biblical picture of this is what work is. Work might feel mundane. It might feel like just something I do Monday to Friday. There is a greater significance behind what we're doing, and God can use it for profound things. And your ability to see that.
And you can move it in the direction that you want it to. It can go to your church, right? It can go to your nonprofit. It can go to whatever that may be. And we can fix that now, right? And that's going to help you sleep better at night. Right? Like you get hit by a bus tomorrow, it doesn't matter because what you want is already in place. We've taken care of that.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Well, good. Thank you. Really, this has been fun. It's been awesome to get more of your story. There are things about you I didn't know. You're like, I don't even know. Your life feels like you are more of a nomad than I ever would have guessed. And I still want to see you in like a woodsy camping environment. But I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
This has been awesome. And I know we get to hang out more, but I can't wait.
Of course.
Sweet. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to the Needle's Eye Faith and Work show. Please share, like, and subscribe if you enjoyed this episode and want to see more. Needle's Eye is a faith and work community based in Richmond, Virginia. We are a non-profit organization that seeks to help working people grow in Christ, find purpose, and transform the marketplace. Check out Needle's Eye online at www.needleseye.org. Here, you can find more content, check out upcoming in-person events, and learn more about partnering with us financially.